I'm sitting in a police station at 7 in the morning, watching my sister Carla being led away in handcuffs from her luxury downtown condo on the morning news. She always thought she was smarter than everyone else, especially me. The camera captures her shocked face as federal agents cart away boxes of evidence from her Scottsdale high-rise. I hold my phone, having just finished uploading the final piece of evidence that brought down her elaborate scheme. This story began 6 months earlier when she asked to borrow my credit score. My name is Willie, and I'm a 28-year-old certified public accountant living in Phoenix, Arizona. I've always been what you'd call the responsible sibling. Hello. I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. Mom had prepared her famous pot roast with mashed potatoes and green beans, and Dad was complaining about gas prices reaching $4 per gallon. The conversation turned to Carla's latest business ventures when she suddenly looked directly at me across the dining room table. Willie, I need to ask you a huge favor, she said, using that sweet voice she always employed when wanting something important. My credit score took a hit after some late payments last year, and I need help qualifying for a small personal loan. I set down my fork and studied her face. Carla had inherited our mother's expressive brown eyes and knew exactly how to use them for maximum effect. What kind of loan are we talking about? Nothing major, she replied quickly, waving her hand dismissively. Just something to help me get back on track. You know how these credit companies are. One little mistake, and they treat you like a criminal. Dad nodded approvingly from his end of the table. Family helps family. Willie, you've got good credit and a steady job. Carla just needs a temporary boost. Mom chimed in while clearing plates. Your sister has been working so hard to rebuild after that difficult period. This could really help her get established. I felt the familiar pressure that came whenever our parents united behind one of Carla's requests. Throughout our childhood, I'd been the responsible one who rarely needed help, while Carla created drama that required constant family intervention. The pattern never changed, even as adults. What exactly would I need to do? I asked, already knowing I'd probably agree despite my reservations. Just co-sign a loan application, Carla explained. We'd meet with my banker friend Marcus tomorrow to handle the paperwork. It's all very professional and legitimate. I'll handle every payment, and your credit will actually improve from the positive payment history. The following Tuesday, I met Carla at First National Bank of Arizona's Central Phoenix branch. Marcus turned out to be a polished, professional man in his early 30s who treated Carla with obvious familiarity. His office featured diplomas from Arizona State University and family photos showcasing expensive vacations. Willie, Carla has told me wonderful things about your financial stability, Marcus said while reviewing my employment verification and credit report. Your 810 credit score is exactly what we need for approval. I felt somewhat impressed by the process. Everything appeared legitimate and well organized. Carla had prepared folders containing income documentation, bank statements, and professional references. She handled most of the discussion with Marcus, while I mainly provided identification and signed documents where indicated. The approval process typically takes 7 to 10 business days, Marcus explained while organizing our paperwork. Once everything processes, funds will be available through direct deposit or cashier's check. Walking to the parking lot afterward, I felt reasonably confident about helping Carla. She seemed genuinely appreciative and promised to handle every aspect of repayment responsibly. Willie, you have no idea how much this means to me, she said, while unlocking her BMW. This loan will completely change my situation. 2 weeks later, I received a thick envelope from First National Bank containing loan documents and payment information. My hands trembled as I read the details. Instead of the $5,000 or $10,000 personal loan I'd expected, the paperwork showed I was now responsible for a $90,000 mortgage down payment for a luxury condominium in Scottsdale's most expensive development. The blood drained from my face as I realized what had happened. Carla had used my excellent credit score and stable accounting income to qualify for a property far beyond anything she could afford on her real estate commission. The monthly payment alone exceeded my entire mortgage by $300. I immediately called Carla, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. What the hell is this $90,000 loan? You said this was a small, personal loan. Willie, calm down, she replied in that patronizing tone she used whenever caught in wrongdoing. It's just a down payment. I'm covering all the monthly payments, and the property will appreciate in value. You're not actually losing any money. You lied to me. I never agreed to co-sign a mortgage for a luxury condo. You signed the papers, she said matter-of-factly. Marcus explained everything during our meeting. Maybe you should pay better attention next time. The conversation ended with her hanging up on me, leaving me staring at legal documents that committed me to financial responsibility for a property I'd never seen and payments I couldn't afford if Carla defaulted. The next morning, I drove directly to Carla's new address in North Scottsdale. The Desert Ridge luxury development featured manicured landscapes, private security, and monthly homeowner association fees exceeding most people's rent payments. Carla's unit occupied the 15th floor with panoramic views of Camelback Mountain and downtown Phoenix. When I knocked on her door, she answered wearing silk pajamas and holding a cup of coffee in an expensive ceramic mug I didn't recognize. The apartment behind her showcased brand new furniture, a 75-inch television, and artwork that definitely wasn't purchased at discount stores. Nice place, I said sarcastically while pushing past her into the living room. Mind explaining how you furnished a luxury condo on a real estate agent's commission? Carla closed the door and faced me with her arms crossed. I've been saving money and planning this move for months. Just because you live like a monk doesn't mean everyone else has to. Where's the money coming from, Carla? Your car payment and credit cards already consume most of your income. Now you're responsible for mortgage payments, homeowner association fees, utilities, and insurance on this place. She walked to her granite kitchen counter and refilled her coffee mug, taking her time before responding. The real estate market is booming right now. My commission checks have been much larger lately, and I'm expecting several major sales to close this quarter. And if those sales don't materialize, if the market changes, I'm legally responsible for a $90,000 loan that you applied for using my credit and income information. Willie, you're overreacting, she said dismissively. Everything is going to work out perfectly. You worry too much about things that probably won't even happen. When I demanded she transfer the loan to her own name, Carla revealed information that made my stomach drop. She'd filed for bankruptcy twice in the past 4 years, something our family had never been told. No legitimate lender would approve her for anything beyond a secured credit card. You knew the entire time that I'd be stuck with this loan, I said, feeling betrayed and manipulated. You never intended to qualify on your own. I intend to pay every penny back, she insisted. Your credit can handle this temporary arrangement while I rebuild my financial situation. That evening, I called our parents, expecting support and understanding. Instead, I encountered the same enabling behavior that had protected Carla from consequences throughout our lives. Willie, your sister is finally getting her life together, Dad said over the phone. She's living in a beautiful place and building her career. Why do you want to sabotage her progress? She committed fraud, Dad. She used my identity to obtain a loan she can't qualify for and can't afford. Family helps family, he replied using his favorite phrase. You make good money and have plenty of savings. Carla just needs time to get established. Mom's response was equally frustrating. Sweetie, you're being dramatic. Your sister will pay back every dollar. She's working very hard right now, and this apartment helps her project success to potential clients. What happens when she can't make the payments? What happens when this affects my ability to buy a house or get credit for legitimate purposes? You're borrowing trouble, Mom said in her most condescending tone. Focus on supporting your sister instead of imagining problems that probably won't happen. Feeling completely isolated and unsupported, I decided to investigate my credit report more thoroughly. What I discovered made me physically ill. Over the past 8 months, Carla had systematically opened multiple credit card accounts using my personal information. She'd accumulated an additional $30,000 in debt across 6 different cards I'd never applied for or authorized. The credit inquiries showed applications at department stores, electronics retailers, and online lending companies. Someone had been intercepting mail at our parents' house and had established mail forwarding from my previous apartment address, ensuring I never received statements or notifications. Each credit card had been maxed out immediately after approval, with purchases including designer clothing, expensive electronics, furniture, and cash advances. The payment history showed minimum payments made just often enough to avoid default, but several accounts were already 30 days past due. I spent the entire night printing credit reports, transaction histories, and account details. By morning, I had assembled a paper trail showing systematic identity theft that had been planned and executed over nearly a year. The most disturbing discovery came when I found photocopies of fake employment documents in Carla's apartment mailbox area. She had created letterhead for a fictional business partnership listing me as her co-owner, complete with forged income statements and tax returns. These documents had been used to qualify for the higher credit limits and establish the mortgage pre-approval. I realized this wasn't desperate financial mistake-making. This was calculated, systematic fraud that Carla had been planning and executing for months while maintaining the facade of family dinners and casual conversation. She'd been studying my habits, accessing my mail, and building a comprehensive identity theft operation while I trusted her completely. The betrayal cut deeper than the financial damage. For 28 years, Id believed family meant protection and honesty. Instead, Id discovered that the person Id trusted most had been systematically destroying my financial security, while our parents actively encouraged her behavior. Monday morning, I took personal time from work to begin the legal process of addressing the identity theft. My first stop was First National Bank, where I requested to speak with Marcus about the fraudulent loan application. The meeting didn't go as I'd hoped. "Mr. Sullivan, I understand your concerns," Marcus said while reviewing the loan documents. "However, your signature appears on every page of the application, and your employment verification was confirmed through direct contact with your accounting firm." "I was deceived about the loan amount and purpose," I explained. "I thought I was co-signing for a small personal loan, not a $90,000 mortgage down payment." Marcus pulled up the original application on his computer screen. The loan amount is clearly listed on the first page as $90,000 for real estate purchase. The property address and intended use are specified throughout the documentation. I realized that during our meeting, I'd been trusting Carla to explain the documents while I focused on signature lines and identification verification. Marcus had been speaking to her primarily, and I'd assumed the conversation matched what Shed told me privately. "What options do I have for removing my name from this loan?" I asked. "The only way to remove a cosigner is through loan refinancing with alternative credit qualification or complete loan payoff," Marcus replied. "Given your sister's credit history, refinancing would be impossible without another qualified cosigner." My next stop was the credit card companies, where I learned even more frustrating information. Each customer service representative explained that disputing fraudulent accounts required police reports documenting identity theft. However, filing those reports would necessarily implicate Carla in criminal activity. "The signatures on these applications appear authentic," explained Jennifer, a supervisor at Phoenix Credit Union. "Unless you can prove someone forged your signature or stole your identity without your knowledge, we consider you legally responsible for all account activity." My sister opened these accounts without my permission. Identity theft by family members requires criminal prosecution to validate the fraud claims, Jennifer continued. "Are you prepared to file criminal charges against your sister?" The question hung in the air as I realized the impossible position I was in. Protecting myself financially required destroying Carla legally, something that would devastate our family relationships permanently. That afternoon, I contacted attorney Janet Morrison, who specialized in financial fraud cases. Her downtown Phoenix office was located in a glass tower overlooking the state capitol, and her credentials included 15 years prosecuting white-collar crimes. "Family identity theft presents unique challenges," Janet explained during our consultation. "Unlike stranger fraud, victims often refuse to pursue criminal charges, which makes civil remedies extremely limited." She reviewed my documentation carefully, asking detailed questions about timeline, access to personal information, and family dynamics. After an hour, her assessment was sobering. "Without criminal prosecution, you remain legally responsible for all debts your sister incurred using your identity," Janet said. "Credit companies and banks won't write off legitimate debts without law enforcement validation of fraud. So my options are bankruptcy or sending my sister to prison." Essentially, yes. Federal identity theft carries serious penalties, but prosecution requires your cooperation as the victim. Driving home that evening, I felt trapped between protecting my financial future and destroying my family. The situation became even more complicated when Carla's manipulation campaign intensified. She began calling relatives with tearful stories about my threats to her housing security. According to Carla, I was jealous of her success and trying to sabotage her real estate career over money I didn't even need. She painted herself as a struggling single woman being bullied by her financially secure brother. Uncle Dennis called me that night, angry and confrontational. "Willie, I'm disappointed in you. Your sister is trying to build something for herself, and you're threatening to destroy her over a temporary financial arrangement." "Uncle Dennis, she stole my identity and accumulated over $100,000 in debt using my credit. She's family," he replied firmly. "Work it out privately instead of involving lawyers and banks. Family business stays in the family." Similar calls came from our cousin Ashley, our Aunt Patricia, and family friends who'd heard Carla's version of events. Each conversation followed the same pattern: accusations that I was being vindictive, selfish, and unnecessarily dramatic about a situation that could be resolved through family cooperation. The isolation was emotionally devastating. People who'd known me for decades were questioning my character based on Carla's lies, while she continued living in luxury funded by my destroyed credit. 3 weeks into this nightmare, I received an unexpected phone call that changed everything. Our cousin Austin, who lived in Tucson, called me late one night, sounding nervous and scared. "Willie, I need to tell you something about Carla," he said quietly. "But you can't tell anyone this conversation happened." "What do you mean?" Austin took a deep breath before continuing. "She's been doing the same thing to other family members for over a year. She used Grandma Rose's information to get a reverse mortgage on her house, and she's been accessing Uncle Dennis' business credit lines." My blood went cold as Austin described a systematic pattern of family exploitation. Carla had convinced our 78-year-old grandmother to add her to bank accounts, ostensibly to help with bill paying, but she'd been making unauthorized withdrawals for months. Uncle Dennis had discovered fraudulent charges on his business accounts, but hadn't connected them to Carla yet. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because she offered me $5,000 to help her access your personal information," Austin admitted. "She wanted me to get copies of your mail and financial documents." I said no, but I realized she's been planning this stuff for a really long time. Austin's revelation transformed my understanding completely. This wasn't desperate financial decision-making or temporary poor judgment. Carla had been running a calculated, long-term criminal enterprise targeting family members who trusted her. I was just her latest victim in an ongoing fraud operation. "Austin, we need to stop her before she destroys more people." "I know," he said quietly, "but I'm scared of what happens when everyone finds out. Our family will never be the same." That night, I couldn't sleep as I processed the full scope of what I was facing. Carla wasn't just my irresponsible sister who'd made a mistake. She was a career criminal who specialized in exploiting family relationships, and she was actively victimizing elderly and vulnerable relatives, while our parents enabled her behavior. The next morning, I made the most difficult decision of my life. I called the Phoenix Police Department and asked to speak with someone about financial crimes. They connected me to Detective Ryan Walsh with the Financial Crimes Unit, a 15-year veteran who specialized in family fraud cases. "Mr. Sullivan, I appreciate you coming forward," Detective Walsh said during our meeting at the downtown precinct. "Family financial fraud is more common than people realize, but prosecution requires comprehensive documentation and victim cooperation." I spread out all my evidence across his desk: credit reports, loan documents, fake employment papers, and records of unauthorized account openings. Detective Walsh examined each item methodically while taking notes. "This level of systematic planning suggests your sister has experience with identity theft," he observed. "The fake business documents and mail interception show sophisticated criminal behavior. My cousin told me she's been doing this to other family members." I explained, then shared Austin's revelations about our grandmother and uncle. Detective Walsh leaned back in his chair thoughtfully. "If we can document multiple victims, this becomes a much stronger case. Federal prosecutors take family fraud rings very seriously, especially when elderly victims are involved. What do I need to do?" "Continue documenting everything. But don't let your sister know you're investigating, he advised. We need to catch her in active criminal behavior to build the strongest possible case. Detective Walsh explained that successful prosecution required evidence of intent to defraud, which meant showing Carla knew her actions were illegal and planned to cause financial harm. My cooperation would be essential, but the case could result in serious prison time for Carla. Over the following weeks, I began living a double life. Publicly, I told family members I was working out the financial situation privately with Carla. This reduced the pressure and stopped the constant phone calls questioning my character. Privately, I was systematically documenting every aspect of her criminal activity. I told Carla I wouldn't dispute the credit card charges or loan, but I needed organized records for tax purposes. This gave me legitimate access to all the transaction histories and financial documents. She seemed relieved that I was finally being reasonable and cooperated fully with my requests. During this investigation phase, I discovered even more disturbing information. Carla had been selling items purchased with my credit cards and pocketing the cash. Electronics, jewelry, and designer goods were being resold through online marketplaces and pawn shops across the Phoenix area. Shed also convinced our grandmother to add her to multiple bank accounts under the pretense of helping with bill management. However, bank records showed regular transfers and withdrawals that had nothing to do with grandmother's expenses. Over 6 months, Carla had stolen nearly $15,000 from our 80-year-old grandmother's retirement savings. Uncle Dennis' business credit lines showed similar patterns. Carla had gained access through her real estate work, claiming she needed to make business purchases for property staging. Instead, she'd been making personal purchases and cash advances while making minimum payments to avoid detection. The scope of the criminal enterprise was staggering. Conservative estimates suggested Carla had stolen over $200,000 from family members over 18 months, using sophisticated manipulation and systematic planning. 3 weeks into my investigation, I overheard a phone conversation that accelerated everything. Carla was talking to someone named Tyler in her condo's kitchen while I was organizing financial documents in her living room. "The Costa Rica plan needs to happen by the end of next month," she said quietly. "I've got everything converted to Bitcoin and cash. Willie is completely clueless, and the family still thinks he's the problem." I strained to hear more details while pretending to focus on paperwork. "Tyler, baby, you have no idea how easy this has been," she continued. "These idiots trust family no matter what. I could rob them blind and they'd blame themselves." My hands were shaking as I realized Carla was planning to flee the country within weeks. She'd been converting stolen assets to untraceable cryptocurrency and cash, planning to disappear before any legal consequences developed. Everything Shed told me about paying back the loans was a complete lie. She laughed during the conversation about manipulating stupid Willie and described her exit strategy as something Shed been planning for months. The real estate career, the family relationships, the promises of repayment, everything had been a facade while she systematically looted our family's finances. That evening, I called Detective Walsh with the new information. He immediately arranged a meeting with federal agent Amanda Torres, explaining that the interstate nature of the fraud and planned flight to avoid prosecution made this a federal case. "Mr. Sullivan, your sister is operating a sophisticated fraud operation," Agent Torres said during our meeting. "The involvement of elderly victims and plans to flee prosecution definitely warrant federal charges." Agent Torres explained that federal penalties for identity theft, wire fraud, and elder abuse could result in decades in prison. However, building the strongest possible case required catching Carla in active criminal behavior before she could escape. "We need to move quickly," she continued. "If your sister leaves the country, extradition could take years, and she might never face justice for what she's done to your family." The weight of the situation was overwhelming. My investigation had revealed that Carla wasn't just irresponsible or desperate. She was a calculated predator who specialized in exploiting family trust, and she was days away from escaping consequences for destroying multiple lives. Agent Torres introduced me to a coordinated federal operation targeting family fraud rings. The FBI's Financial Crimes Task Force had been tracking similar cases across Arizona, and Carla's pattern matched ongoing investigations involving elderly exploitation and identity theft networks. Your sister's methods suggest professional training or experience. Agent Torres explained. The systematic approach to mail interception, document forgery, and asset conversion indicates this isn't her first criminal enterprise. Over the next 2 weeks, I accelerated my evidence collection while maintaining the appearance of cooperation with Carla's requests. I secretly installed recording equipment in my apartment after discovering signs that someone had been searching through my belongings, likely looking for evidence of my investigation. The paranoia was justified. During one recording session, I captured Carla admitting to Tyler that she'd been monitoring my activities and was concerned about my increased interest in financial records. Willie's been asking too many detailed questions about payment schedules, she said during a late-night phone call. I think he might be getting suspicious about the timeline. I also discovered she'd been accessing my personal email account through password recovery questions about our family history. This explained how she'd been intercepting some communications from banks and credit companies, delaying my discovery of fraudulent accounts. Agent Torres arranged for digital forensics experts to document Carla's cybercrimes, including unauthorized access to my online accounts and systematic deletion of incriminating communications. The evidence showed months of careful planning to cover her tracks and delay detection. During this period, I learned about additional victims Carla had been targeting. She'd convinced our elderly neighbor Dorothy to invest her life savings in a fake real estate partnership, promising guaranteed returns through Carla's professional connections. Dorothy had provided $25,000 that Carla immediately converted to cryptocurrency. The manipulation was heartbreaking to witness. Dorothy, a widow in her 70s, trusted Carla completely and praised her to other neighbors as a successful businesswoman helping seniors with investment opportunities. Carla visited Dorothy weekly, bringing flowers and homemade cookies while systematically stealing her retirement security. Agent Torres, we have to stop this before she takes everything Dorothy has, I said during one of our coordination meetings. We're moving as quickly as possible, she assured me, but premature action could allow other victims to be destroyed while your sister flees prosecution. The federal investigation had expanded to include surveillance of Carla's activities across multiple locations. Agents had documented her visits to cryptocurrency exchanges, foreign currency dealers, and international money transfer services. The evidence showed systematic preparation for permanent relocation outside U.S. jurisdiction. Meanwhile, I intercepted mail showing the most audacious part of Carla's plan. She'd been using my identity to apply for business loans totaling $200,000, claiming I was starting a real estate development company with her as my partner. The loan applications included forged tax returns, fake business plans, and fabricated contracts for fictional construction projects. She's scheduled to close on these loans next Friday. I told Agent Torres after discovering the documentation, this represents her biggest score yet, and it's scheduled for the week before her planned departure to Costa Rica. Agent Torres confirmed that this timeline matched their surveillance observations. Carla had booked flights to San Jose for the following Tuesday under her real name, with Tyler accompanying her. They'd also rented a luxury villa in Manuel Antonio through an extended stay rental service. Your sister never intended to stop with the condo loan, Agent Torres explained. She's been building toward this final major theft before disappearing permanently. The revelation was devastating. Every conversation about repayment, every family dinner where she seemed genuinely committed to rebuilding her life, every promise about handling the financial obligations, all of it had been calculated lies while she planned the ultimate betrayal. During our final coordination meeting, Agent Torres explained the arrest strategy. Multiple federal agencies would execute simultaneous search warrants at Carla's condo, Tyler's house, Austin's apartment, and several safety deposit boxes She'd rented under false names. The operation was scheduled for Thursday morning, 1 day before her planned loan closing and 5 days before her flight to Costa Rica. Mr. Sullivan, we need one final piece of evidence, Agent Torres said. We need Carla to incriminate herself on record, admitting to the systematic fraud and her intention to flee prosecution. They arranged for me to wear recording equipment during a meeting with Carla at her condo, where I would claim I wanted to officially take over all loan payments so she could qualify for additional credit. The story was plausible enough that Carla wouldn't suspect entrapment. This is your last chance to change your mind, Agent Torres warned. Once we arrest your sister, there's no going back. She'll face serious federal prison time, and your family relationships will be permanently altered. I thought about Dorothy losing her life savings, about our grandmother's stolen retirement funds, about Uncle Dennis' business credit being destroyed, and about all the future victims Carla would target if she escaped consequences. She's had months to stop this voluntarily, I replied. Agent Torres, she chose to escalate instead of coming clean. I can't let her destroy more innocent people. That night, I couldn't sleep as I prepared for the most difficult conversation of my life. In less than 12 hours, I would be recording my sister confessing to crimes that would send her to federal prison for years. The little girl who used to bring me cookies when I was sick, who cried on my shoulder after bad breakups, who called me her favorite brother. That person had apparently never existed. The Carla I thought I knew was a mask worn by a predator who specialized in exploiting family love for personal profit. Tomorrow morning, I would help federal agents remove that mask permanently. Thursday morning arrived with clear Arizona skies, and temperatures already reaching 78 degrees by 9 o'clock. I'd been awake since 4, reviewing my conversation strategy with Agent Torres and checking the recording equipment concealed in my jacket pocket. Remember, Mr. Sullivan, your goal is natural conversation that leads her to admit the systematic fraud and planned flight. Agent Torres reminded me during our final briefing. Don't push too hard or she might become suspicious. Federal agents had been positioned around Carla's building since 6 in the morning, with teams ready to execute search warrants at multiple locations simultaneously. Detective Walsh would coordinate the local arrests, while Agent Torres supervised the federal evidence collection. I arrived at Carla's condo at 10:30, carrying a folder of financial documents that would support my cover story about officially assuming loan responsibility. My hands were sweating as I rode the elevator to the 15th floor, knowing this would be our last conversation as siblings instead of victim and perpetrator. Carla answered the door wearing yoga clothes and seeming completely relaxed and confident. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she was holding a protein smoothie in an expensive blender bottle I'd never seen before. "Willie, you're here early," she said cheerfully while gesturing me into the living room. "I wasn't expecting you until noon. I wanted to get this paperwork handled before work," I replied, settling onto her leather couch. "My accountant needs documentation showing the official transfer of payment responsibility." Carla's eyes lit up with obvious pleasure. "I'm so glad you're finally being practical about this situation. It really is the best solution for everyone involved." The living room around us showcased even more expensive items than I'd noticed during previous visits. A new sound system occupied one wall, designer artwork hung in professional frames, and the coffee table featured an arrangement of objects that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Carla, before we make this official, I need to understand the complete financial picture," I said while opening my folder. "How many total accounts are we dealing with? I want to make sure I'm prepared for all the obligations." She sat across from me in a matching leather chair, looking comfortable and completely unsuspicious. "Well, there's obviously the main loan for $90,000, but there are also the credit cards we opened to handle furnishing and moving expenses." "How many credit cards exactly?" "Maybe 6 or 7, she said with a dismissive wave. "Nothing too complicated. The total balance is probably around 30,000 across all of them." I pretended to take notes while the recording device captured every word. "And these accounts are all in my name because of the credit score issues you mentioned." "Right," Carla replied without hesitation. "My credit got messed up during some difficult years, so using your information was the only way to qualify for decent rates and limits." The casual admission of identity theft was exactly what Agent Torres needed, but I had to go deeper to establish intent and planning. "When did you first realize my credit would be necessary for this plan?" I asked carefully. Carla leaned back in her chair and smiled. "Honestly, I've been thinking about this approach for almost a year. I knew I wanted to upgrade my living situation, but my financial situation made conventional approval impossible. So this was planned long-term, not a sudden decision." "Willie, I'm not some impulsive person," she said with obvious pride. "I researched everything carefully. I studied your habits, figured out how to access the necessary documentation, and created a timeline that would work for everyone involved." My stomach dropped as she described the systematic planning with complete confidence. She was treating the conversation like a business discussion, showing no awareness that she was confessing to serious federal crimes. "What about the other family members who've been helping with your business ventures?" I asked, thinking about our grandmother and Uncle Dennis. Carla's expression became more animated. "That's the beauty of family, Willie. Everyone wants to help each other succeed. Grandma Rose was thrilled to contribute to my real estate investments, and Uncle Dennis loves supporting young entrepreneurs." "Contribute how exactly?" "Well, Grandma gave me access to her accounts so I could help manage her bills, which let me redirect some of her excess savings toward my business development. And Uncle Dennis has been letting me use his business credit for property staging and client development." The recording device captured her describing elder financial abuse and credit fraud as family cooperation. She genuinely seemed to believe her own narrative about helping relatives while stealing their money. "Carla, what happens if something goes wrong with these arrangements? What if family members change their minds or financial situations get complicated?" For the first time, her confident demeanor shifted slightly. She glanced toward her bedroom area before answering. "Willie, I've been planning for different scenarios," she said more quietly. "Tyler and I have been discussing backup options in case the local market gets too complicated." "What kind of backup options?" "Well, we've been researching international real estate opportunities," she continued. "Costa Rica has amazing potential for American investors, and the lifestyle there is incredible. How soon are you thinking about exploring these international opportunities?" Carla stood and walked to her kitchen, suddenly seeming less comfortable with the conversation's direction. "Sooner than I originally planned," she admitted. "Maybe within the next week or two." "Next week? Carla, what about all the loan payments and family obligations you've been promising to handle?" She turned to face me with an expression I'd never seen before. The sweet, manipulative sister was gone, replaced by someone cold and calculating. "Willie, you're being dramatic again," she said sharply. "Those payments are your responsibility now. You'll be developing new business opportunities that will benefit everyone eventually. So you're planning to leave the country and stick me with over $100,000 in debt. You can afford it," she replied without emotion. "You make good money, you have savings, and your credit can handle the temporary strain. I need freedom to build something bigger." The conversation continued for another 20 minutes as I documented her complete lack of remorse and detailed planning for fleeing prosecution. She described studying my financial habits, intercepting my mail, and manipulating family members as necessary business strategies. "Willie, you have to understand that family success requires sacrifice," she said toward the end of our conversation. "I'm the one with vision and ambition. Supporting me is an investment in all our futures." At exactly 11:45, I gave Agent Torres the predetermined signal by texting ready to finalize documents. Within 2 minutes, I heard commotion in the hallway outside Carla's apartment. The knock on the door was firm and official. "Federal agents, open the door." Carla's face went completely white as she realized what was happening. "Willie, what did you do?" "I protected our family from a predator," I replied as federal agents entered with weapons drawn and badges displayed. "Carla Sullivan, you're under arrest for identity theft, wire fraud, and elder financial abuse," Agent Torres announced while displaying her credentials. The next few minutes were chaos as Carla alternately threatened me and begged me to stop the arrest. She promised to pay back every dollar, claimed she'd been planning to return all the money before leaving the country, and accused me of destroying our family over temporary financial arrangements. "Willie, please, I'm your sister," she screamed while being handcuffed. Agent Torres read her rights while other agents began documenting evidence throughout the apartment. I watched my sister being led away in federal custody while her luxury condo was systematically searched for evidence of her crimes. My phone rang immediately with a call from Agent Torres. "Mr. Sullivan, we've executed simultaneous arrests at Tyler's residence and Austin's apartment. We've also secured the safety deposit boxes and cryptocurrency accounts. Your sister's entire operation has been shut down." Through the 15th floor windows, I could see news vans arriving in the parking lot. Within hours, Carla's arrest would be local and national news as an example of family financial fraud and elder abuse. The sister I thought I knew was gone. replaced by a federal prisoner facing decades in prison for systematic criminal exploitation of our family. The recording device in my pocket contained hours of her confessing to crimes that would ensure she never victimized anyone again. 6 months later, I sat in a federal courthouse watching Carla accept a plea agreement that would send her to prison for 5 years, followed by 3 years of supervised probation with full restitution requirements. The courtroom was packed with family members, victims, and local media covering what had become known as the family fraud ring case. Federal prosecutor Daniel Morrison presented evidence showing Carla had stolen over $300,000 from family members and elderly victims across Arizona over 18 months. The sophisticated operation included identity theft, document forgery, cybercrimes, elder financial abuse, and conspiracy to flee prosecution. Your Honor, the defendant systematically exploited family trust to fund a luxury lifestyle while planning to escape consequences through international flight, Prosecutor Morrison stated during the sentencing hearing. Her victims include elderly family members who may never recover their stolen retirement savings. Tyler received 3 years in federal prison for his role as co-conspirator, while Austin received 18 months for limited participation and cooperation with authorities. All 3 defendants faced restitution requirements totaling over $400,000, including interest and penalties. The most difficult part of the aftermath was rebuilding family relationships damaged by months of lies and manipulation. Initially, some relatives blamed me for Carla's arrest and prosecution, believing I should have handled everything privately without involving law enforcement. Uncle Dennis was particularly angry when he discovered I'd known about his business credit fraud for weeks before the arrests. Willie, you could have warned me instead of letting federal agents show up at my office with search warrants. Uncle Dennis, warning anyone would have compromised the investigation and allowed Carla to destroy evidence or flee the country, I explained. More victims would have been created while she escaped justice. The family dynamics shifted dramatically as the full scope of Carla's crimes became public during court proceedings. Our grandmother Rose had lost nearly $30,000 in retirement savings that Shed trusted Carla to invest safely. Dorothy, our elderly neighbor, had lost her entire life savings of $45,000 to Carla's fake real estate partnership. I still can't believe she looked me in the eye and lied while taking everything I had, Dorothy said during one of many victim impact meetings with prosecutors. Hello. I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. Federal asset forfeiture laws allowed prosecutors to seize everything Carla had purchased with stolen money, including her condo, furniture, electronics, and jewelry. The liquidation generated nearly $200,000 for victim restitution. Banks reversed all fraudulent charges once presented with federal criminal conviction evidence, and my credit score was completely restored within 60 days. The mortgage company forgave the $90,000 down payment and removed my name from all associated liability. Most importantly, the elderly victims recovered their stolen funds through the restitution process, though the emotional trauma lasted much longer than the financial damage. Our grandmother required months of counseling to process the betrayal by someone Shed trusted completely. Rose, the hardest part isn't losing the money, Dorothy explained during a support group meeting for fraud victims. It's learning that someone you loved never existed. The Carla who brought me cookies and listened to my stories was just acting while she planned to rob me. 8 months after the arrests, I visited Carla at the Federal Correctional Facility in Tucson, where she was serving her sentence. The visiting room was stark and institutional, filled with other inmates meeting with family members under the supervision of corrections officers. Carla appeared smaller and more subdued than I'd ever seen her. The confident, manipulative woman who destroyed our family had been replaced by someone who seemed genuinely broken and remorseful. Willie, I know you'll probably never forgive me, she said quietly across the metal table, but I need you to know that I understand what I did was evil. Not just illegal, but genuinely evil. What happened to you, Carla? When did helping family become a cover for destroying innocent people? She was quiet for several minutes before responding. I think it started with small things. Borrowing money I didn't intend to pay back, using credit cards without permission, taking cash from Mom's purse. Everyone always forgave me and made excuses, so I kept escalating. But stealing from Grandma Rose and Dorothy? They trusted you completely. I know, she whispered while crying. I convinced myself I was borrowing money I would eventually pay back with interest. But honestly, I was planning to disappear and leave everyone else dealing with the consequences. The conversation lasted 2 hours, as Carla described the psychological progression from irresponsible behavior to systematic criminal activity. She'd begun believing that family members owed her support for her dreams, regardless of the cost to their own financial security. Willie, I want you to know that the person who hugged you goodbye that last morning was already planning to steal everything from you and disappear forever, she continued. You saved our family by stopping me before I could finish destroying everyone who loved me. Before leaving the prison, I made something clear to Carla about our future relationship. Carla, I forgive you, because holding on to anger would hurt me more than you, I said. But rebuilding any relationship between us requires proof that you've genuinely changed, not just words about being sorry. What kind of proof? Complete honesty about everything, ongoing counseling to understand why you became a predator, and using your experience to help other families recognize financial abuse. Maybe speaking at fraud prevention seminars, or writing about how family enablement creates criminals. 1 year later, Carla began participating in a prisoner education program focused on financial crimes prevention. She contributed to educational materials helping families recognize manipulation tactics and elder abuse warning signs. Our relationship remains limited but honest. She calls monthly to update me on her rehabilitation progress and therapy insights. The conversations are different now, marked by genuine accountability rather than manipulation and excuses. Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. Most importantly, the elderly victims have recovered financially and emotionally. Dorothy has become an advocate for fraud prevention, education, speaking at senior centers about recognizing financial manipulation. Our grandmother Rose has regained her confidence and independence after months of counseling and family support. The experience taught me that real family protects each other from harm, even when that protection requires confronting criminal behavior by someone you love. True loyalty means stopping family members from destroying innocent people, not enabling their worst impulses through misguided forgiveness. I want to ask you something. Have you ever experienced a situation where supporting family meant enabling harmful behavior? Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. Stay strong, trust your instincts, and never apologize for protecting innocent people from those who would harm them, regardless of blood relation.